Hello, Internet friends. Let's talk about Generation Z. You know, the right keeps saying that Generation Z is going to be the most conservative generation since the greatest generation. So that's the folks that are about in their 80s and 90s right now. Let's let that sink in for a moment. I don't even know how that's even going to be possible. Generation Z has grown up during the most degenerate era of America. They have no idea what America is even like because I don't even see America anymore. All I see is a bunch of degeneracy, censorship. God, you name it, we've got it. It's horrible. So let's break down exactly what Generation Z is facing right now, and let's see if we can come up with some solutions. All right, so Generation Z thinks that multiculturalism is normal. Shoot, most of Generation Z in America is not even American. That's horrible. Next thing is you guys think that LGBT is normal. You think that censorship is normal, hate speech laws, and corporations banning people or cutting people off for wrongthink is normal because, you know, if you don't like brown people, then somehow that's terrorism. And then let's talk about something here that I've never heard anybody else talk about this. This is something that I have noticed is judgment. You guys have been conditioned to fear making a judgment because you might hurt somebody's feelings or exclude them or be a racist or something like that. And you guys don't even want to make a judgment call if it's even in your best interest. See, that's what these communists have done to you. They've desensitized you to making judgments in your own best interest. You're not even thinking, that's probably why we have all these problems right now, because that's a word that terrifies you, judgment. All right, and then you guys live in such a relativist era, you just don't know what anything means anymore. It's so sad. Another thing you guys think is freedom. You have freedom of expression and freedom of speech. So let me give you an example. So one of the young girls wants to go nurse her baby in a restaurant, and she'll flop out her breasts, both breasts, not just one breast, but both breasts. And she'll talk to people, you know, the baby will be like whatever and not nursing, and then she'll hook the baby up and nurse, and she won't cover anything up. And if people say something, she's like, well, I have the right to do this. It's freedom of expression. Whereas, you know, you young people just don't know what decorum is. Manners, you don't consider other people around you. It's just the weirdest thing. So if I say, hey, you know, can you cover up while you're nursing? And I can tell you about when I was a nursing mom that I used to nurse everywhere and nobody knew I was nursing because I didn't think it was anybody's business to see my breasts hanging out, right? But the young people think it's okay for their boobs to be hanging out. And if anybody says anything, well, they're sexual. You're just being sexual. That's sexual. Just can't tell anybody anything anymore, it seems like, right? I'll still tell them. I'm not afraid of you guys. So let's see, that's a pretty big one right there too. And if somebody asks you to turn your music down, you'll double the volume. I had some black girl in my yard a couple of years ago, and I told her to get out of my yard. And so what did she do? Well, she was with a couple other kids, and so I chased after them and I got their pictures, and they didn't know that I had done that. And they came and there was like this figurine in the walkway, and they threw that in my backyard. And at the time I was babysitting a bunch of puppy dogs, and if the puppy dogs wouldn't have been in the house, they could have been hurt. So I was pretty angry about that. Luckily, we had a really good police officer in the neighborhood, and all these kids because I got their picture, they all got into trouble. And I think they might have gotten suspended from school too. And I understand from the young people, the young white kids, that they are being tortured by the black students because the black students are violent. And they don't understand decorum either. You know, the brown segment of society doesn't understand American decorum, and the young white kids, they don't understand it. They're not as bad as the brown kids are, but they just don't understand the decorum of America. So, you know, if you say to an American, hey, your music's too loud, another American will say, oh, I'm so sorry. They'll turn the music down or off, And they will hide. They will be so embarrassed. Okay, this is normal American behavior, to be very considerate of other people and their space, and to be loud and obnoxious and, think that people don't have property rights. This is not American. This is just some bizarre foreign concept. This is something so weird. I can't even wrap my brain around it. So let's see. And young people think that the government's somehow going to save them, and they actually worship the government, and they believe every single belief system is right except for Christianity, and they hate Christianity, and they hate religion, and they say that religion is the source of all the problems in the world. All right, let me tell you about when I was growing up real quick. When I was 4 years old, I lived on a farm, and I had to cut the kindling. I was given a hatchet, and I was sent out by myself. We lived in the middle of nowhere. I was not supervised, and my job was to cut the kindling. One time I sliced my finger, but just the one time, and I was okay. My finger is still attached. And then as I got older and my mother had more children, I was the one who was responsible for taking care of the animals. I had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, take care of the horses, the cows, the chickens, the pigs, the ducks. You name it, we had it. I had to milk goats and feed calves and just all kinds of stuff. And I never said, I don't feel like it. I don't want to. I'm too tired. That was my job, and I had to do it. I didn't have a choice. By the same token, everybody knew what they had to do, and they did it. There was no crying or whining or complaining or moaning. People just did what they had to do, and you could count on them that it would get done. Alrighty, so let's talk about some solutions here. Now, if you're a parent of a Generation Z and you're lost and you don't know what to do, first of all, the thing you need to do is you need to be in charge of who your children are exposed to and what your children are exposed to. So if they have internet access and they have a cell phone, you need to cut that shit off right away. Stop your service plan, shut off their phone, because you're in charge of that. And you can come up with a story, I can't afford it. That works really well. That's what I did to my kid. When I saw how negatively that was impacting him, I shut everything down. He couldn't get on a computer unless there was an adult in the household to put in the password for him. We didn't have the internet. He had to go to school to use the internet, and the freaking school required the kids to have the internet to do their homework. This is the dumbest thing ever, isn't it? I was just extremely strict about that. And then the phone he had was like a flip phone where he couldn't even get any data on the phone. The phone was for phone calls and texting. That was it. He wasn't very happy, and he used to ask me why all the poor kids had better phones than he did. I just told him that we were poor too and we couldn't afford it. When my son hit 14, I quit my job and I quit pretty much everything in my life. And if I could not be home, my son had a babysitter. He always had to be with an adult from the age of 14 to 18. I did not let him have a minute alone to get into any kind of trouble. Now, I tried to get him to quit public school, but he wanted to keep going. So I just had to work 10 times harder to make sure that he was insulated and had the strength of character to resist the brainwashing. All right, so let's talk about if you're a young person and you want to get out of the grip of this brainwashing. I think that if you really are determined to do it, one thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to shut off anything that has to do with popular attitude or degenerate attitude. You'll have to stop watching TV, stop listening to the news, stop listening to the radio, and start listening to thought leaders like Jim Rohn. Listening to Jim Rohn, he's quite the revolutionary, and he definitely saw how America was going sideways. Oh, he's going to be a wonderful resource. He has a 6-hour video on character. Just watch that video over and over and over and over and over again until you can repeat it verbatim. Definitely that will help you out. And then hang around with people who have a mindset, an American mindset, people who will build you up and strengthen your American character. All right, internet friends, Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to your thoughts below.